hope that nobody, but nobody, has to go through what I have gone through.
So what to make of this whole Rob Ford story? A lot of Canadians must be wondering about that tonight. By his own admission, while on the job, he's been a crack-smoking drunk at least once. But tonight, he's still the mayor of Toronto. Jamie Watt is one of our insiders. He's also helped run the losing campaign against Ford in the last election. And John Tory knows politics well, too, a former mayoralty candidate himself. He may be one again. A former provincial opposition leader here in Ontario and a former national campaign director for the PC party. He now has his own radio show. Must be a lot easier just doing radio than politics. Jamie, start us off on this. How do you explain this story to the rest of the country?
Well, I think Canadians are interested in this three ways. First of all, just the salaciousness of it, the details, the unbelievability that the mayor of Toronto could actually be smoking crack on the job. Then I think they're interested in it because of the out-of-control way the mayor's been handling this. You know, Stephen Harper's had a pretty tough week, but he's never looked out of control. Whereas this guy's chasing reporters with his dirty laundry on the driveway, and then he's coming out and making one announcement and then having another. And so people are saying, what is going on? It doesn't look like, even though a bad situation happened, things are under control. And finally, they're saying, how on earth is it possible that he's surviving? Because in their communities, in their towns, in their cities, this would never, ever happen. And that's the question. What is it about Rob Ford that allows him to continue?
Well, we'll get to that. John, have you ever seen anything like this? I mean, all those different levels of politics that you've been in?
Nothing, but I think the difference, Peter, is that most of the time, even sometimes in smaller towns and so on around the country, there'd be somebody that would have a plan, and this seems to unfold in a completely ad hoc way. I mean, things happen, you know, imagine somebody coming out as he did today, and he prompts the question to be asked of him by the journalist and then admits he smoked crack. Or hours later, he's allowed to go into a room and say, I have nothing more to hide. I mean, who would ever let any business leader, I mean, I said earlier today, if the Lord himself was my client, I would never let him go in a room and say, I have absolutely nothing left to hide. These are extraordinary things, and I think that's why we've not seen anything like it, because as Jamie said, it's basically out of control. It's being made up by the hour.
But how does he win? How, I mean, he was looked at as a kind of different, very different kind of candidate when he became mayor, when he beat your candidate, right, Jamie. He wins. You see polls even in the last week or two that suggest he'd win again. How does he do that?
Well, I think he won because people were fed up with what was going on at City Hall, and they actually wanted a bull in the china shop. And they knew that some china would get broken along the way, and that was okay with them. You know, when you said to people, would he be a good representative for the city, you know, around the world? They say he's not going around the world. He's going to go to City Hall and do what he said he would do. So that was attractive to a lot of people. I think something else happened along the way, and that's to do with his authenticity. And a lot of people identify with him. He's a straight-ahead guy. He doesn't pretend to be anybody that he's not. And so people found that attractive. The problem is now, Peter, that he's lied. And I think that might change things a lot. That same poll that had him going up had 7 in 10 Torontonians saying he should resign. So we have to look at that poll in its totality.
And what got him elected, Peter, this stop the gravy train of the public sector and so on, he may have addressed some of that at City Hall, but of course, if you look around the rest of the country, we have the Senate scandal, and here in Ontario, we have the gas plant scandal, which has been, I think some of the people in the rest of the country know a bit about that. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of still mad as taxpayers, and they're still struggling as taxpayers, people who are getting very small raises, if any, and are seeing their taxes and charges go up. So what fueled him to run and what got him elected is still a fact today, and a lot of people are hanging in as a result, I think.
But he does seem to have, like, redefined how to do politics, or at least he, certainly in his own case, he seems to have redefined it. No?
He has totally redefined how to do politics in this country. We've never seen anybody like him. People compare him to Marion Barry, but he's compared to Marion Barry in terms of the offense, the smoking of crack. He's not like Marion Barry at all in the way he's conducted himself. And he has been delivering for people in a way that a lot of people like. They've been willing to put up and excuse his behavior. I think, though, when you look at Joanna's piece that we just saw, and you actually start to string together all of the things that have taken place over the last 6 months, it's a very different picture. I got an email just before we started tonight from a friend who had to explain to their 9-year-old what a drunken stupor was. So I think at some point this is going to be just a bridge too far.
Well, talk to me about what we witnessed today, because you have a guy who comes out and talks about being hammered and taking crack, and within 4 hours, he's back in front of the microphones, basically launching his campaign for next year. All in the space of a couple of hours.
That's the problem. I mean, 2 days ago, Peter, he was on a big broadcast on his radio show apologizing for everything up to that point. So that's exactly what's going on here. It's kind of an ad hoc thing that, and I think I think the biggest problem with what he did today, or perhaps what he didn't do, which was take some time off and or give a broad-based apology that actually covered some things quite specifically, is that I think the citizens of Toronto, and other people in the country might find it amusing, but the citizens in the government of Toronto will probably find themselves back in the exact same position we were in as of noon today, 3 days from now, 5 days from now, and that's what's damaging to a big city that needs its government and needs its mayor and is focused on this and distracted by this.
He also raised the ante today. He said this will never, ever, ever happen again. And we know with all of our friends who have challenges with substances, that's a very difficult thing to deliver on. And now 4.5 million people will be watching that.
You make at least part of your living advising clients who are in trouble.
Yes.
Jamie, what's the advice here?
The advice was the advice I gave the mayor 6 months ago. I said he should recuse himself and look after his personal problems. He could come back. He would have, I thought, done fine. The question is, today the advice stands. He should recuse himself and look after his personal problems, look after his family. Whether he can come back now or things have gone too far, I don't know. We're in a different place than we were 6 months ago.
I think he could, Peter. I mean, I think
that he's lost all his city allies, though,
well,
right?
but they'll come back. People love a story of redemption anywhere in the country and anywhere in North America, probably the world. And if he could solve his problems and if he could come back and be sort of cleaner and ready to go, I think he might have a chance of winning again, as hard as people may find that to believe.
You know, there's this sense in the city of drip, 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 and that the dripping hasn't stopped.
Well, it hasn't. But at the end of the day, still, if you staunch the bleeding, stop the dripping a little bit by going away, you're out of sight for a period of time. You have to address the issues while you're away. And some of the other issues that are floating around that are, I'll call them the legal issues, can be somehow dealt with. Then I just think he could come back. And who doesn't like one of those stories where I confessed, I was caught, yes, I was lying a lot? Because I had people on my radio show today saying when you're an addict, I mean, that's the first thing you do is lie, lie, and lie again. So people will say, well, that was part of the addiction. That's what he hopes will happen now. But he hasn't gone away and had a period away and solved the problem. And that's why I think it's not working to say, of course I lied, I'm an addict.
You get the quick last word, James.
Just remember, I don't think we're dealing with everything that's going to come out. Justice Nordheimer still has a significant part of that information to obtain order that he released last week that they're still dealing with. Apparently more is coming out this week. And I can't believe that whatever they held back was good for the mayor. So whatever they held back is probably, I have no information about that, but I would guess that whatever they held back is even worse for the mayor. I think that's one of the reasons you saw that today.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you both. John Tory, Jamie Watt.